Amen. Amen.
Hey, what's up, transit friends? I think we've all experienced things we'd rather not have happened. Like, I don't know about you, but based on what we just saw, I wouldn't want any of those things to happen to me, like being grounded all weekend long. Whew, forgetting your lines in a school play. Actually, that did happen to me when I was in grade 7. I actually joined a play called Into the Woods. And boy, I forgot a line. I was just like standing there frozen. Man, actually, grade 7 was a big year for me if I think about it. But like canceling your birthday party, like, oh man, that would suck. Like all those things are by far the worst. Like, no thank you, I don't want it. And if I had to guess, I would think that another thing that you may not want to happen is talking about dating and relationships at church. But you know what? I know you can handle it. And this week, we're going to have some real talk about something I think is super important to remember. Okay, now before we head into our message, I'm going to ask you to do something for me, okay? Okay, think about the plot of every movie or TV show you love that has a couple in it. What do dating and relationships look like there? Maybe they look like this. Or they look like this. Or they look like this. Or, this movie just came out, they look like this. See, even though it may seem like dating and relationships are everywhere, I can guarantee you that if dating and relationships are never a major part of your life, you definitely don't have to wonder if you're missing out on a big, amazing thing. How do I know? Well, because of what Jesus said about the whole thing. And knowing Jesus changes everything, including the way we see relationships. If there's anybody who isn't afraid to have real talk about anything, it's Jesus. When he was alive on earth, he made a point to tell people the truth about life, the choices they were making, and what God's best for us really looks like. The good news for us is that the people who knew and followed Jesus then wrote down what they heard and saw and put it into a big book called the Bible. Now, we're going to look at some things that a couple of Jesus' closest friends and followers recorded from his time here on earth. And there are things that can help us shift our thinking when it comes to not only to our relationship status or what that looks like, but to the whole point of life. So before we get into it, let me set the scene for you, okay? Jesus spent a whole lot of his time on earth teaching and preaching, going from city to city. He shared stories and lessons and messages to help people understand things about God and about life. One of Jesus' most famous sermons is known as the Sermon on the Mount. This is just a fancy way of saying that Jesus delivered this particular message on, yep, you guessed it, a mountain. And while the entire message is pretty cool, there's one part in particular that I think can help us understand what our focus in life should be all about. So let's take a look, okay? This is the Message version. You're here to be the light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up to God, this generous Father in heaven. That's Matthew 5:14-16. I love the way that Jesus put this. When we're following him, the one and only goal for our life is simple: to reflect who God is to the world around us, to be a light that shines God's love, to live so boldly and brightly that nothing can hide it. Because when we make that our focus, people can't help but to notice. It's like a light in the darkness. When we use our gifts, passions, and lives to reflect God to the people around us, people will see it. They'll notice. And maybe it will lead them to turn their light to and start following Jesus too. That's the point. As followers of Jesus, our one and only goal is to live our lives so that the light shines out of us. When we make that our focus, we know we're not missing any part of the point of life. Now, maybe you're thinking, that sounds cool and all, but what does it have to do whether or not I choose to date? Great question. See, like we said, there are so many different ideas about what the point of life is. A lot of them have to do with things like dating and relationships. And sometimes other Christians may lead us to believe that if you're not interested in dating, that we'll somehow be missing out on something that is so big and there might be something wrong with us. But that kind of thinking isn't true. In fact, it is completely misses the point. See, Jesus calls us to live our lives that shines and reflects Him and shines and reflects God. Now, can dating relationships reflect the image of God? Absolutely. Can a single person reflect the image of God? Absolutely. Are you missing anything if you choose to be single? Absolutely not. See, real talk, you can choose to be single and that is A-okay. There have been some incredible leaders in history that have made a huge impact in the world who were single, starting with our boy Jesus. See, the Son of God, who came to save all humanity, who performed miracles and changed people's lives, he was single. John the Baptist, who was a prophet and came to tell the world that Jesus was coming to earth, that guy was single. Mother Teresa, who devoted her entire life to serving the poor and won a Nobel Peace Prize for her work, she was single. Paul, we talked about our guy last week. See, he was one of the most famous leaders in church history who wrote a lot of the Bible. He was single. See, God can use single people to do incredible things. No matter what you choose when it comes to dating or being single, when you choose a life that follows Jesus, you can know that you won't be missing out on anything because God has you. That's why when you leave today, I want you to feel confident that you can choose to be single. And when you realize this, you recognize that dating and relationships are a part of life, but they aren't the point of life. See, the point of life is to reflect God's love to the world. And because of that, you have a choice. And that choosing can start right now in middle school. You can choose to date when you're allowed to, or you can choose to be single. No matter what anyone else's expectation of you is, you can choose what's best for you without wondering if you're missing out. And one of the best places to continue this conversation is in small group. They'll help encourage you to go after the real point of life and to shine your light into the world. And they'll also be there to support you and celebrate you when you choose God's best for your life, whether that's dating or being single. So as you head over to small group and start the conversation, I want you to think about this question. What's one way you can reflect the image of God to the world around you today?